Ethan Kim was the kind of student every parent dreams of. At 21, he was already making waves in his university's prestigious engineering program. With sharp features and an even sharper mind, he was the epitome of a young academic prodigy. Ethan had a presence that commanded respect, and it wasn't just his intelligence that set him apart. It was his unyielding dedication and natural leadership. From the moment Ethan stepped onto the campus, it was clear he was destined for greatness. Professors praised his innovative ideas, while his peers looked up to him, not only as a source of knowledge but also as a beacon of hope and inspiration. He was the president of several academic clubs, often organizing events that left everyone in awe of his capabilities. He had a way of making the most complex problems seem simple, turning theoretical concepts into practical solutions effortlessly. But Ethan's brilliance wasn't confined to the classroom. He had a genuine kindness that drew people to him. Whether it was helping a struggling classmate with a tough assignment or volunteering his time for community projects, Ethan was always ready to lend a hand. He was the student who had it all: brains, charisma, and a heart of gold. However, behind this facade of perfection, Ethan carried a burden that no one knew about. Despite his achievements and the admiration he received, there was a part of his life he kept hidden from everyone. As he walked the university halls with confidence, few could have guessed the complexity of the double life he was leading. Ethan's journey to becoming a star student wasn't paved with ease. Behind his brilliant mind and confident demeanor lay a history of hardship and sacrifice. Growing up in a small, cramped apartment, Ethan's family knew the meaning of struggle all too well. His parents worked tirelessly at low-paying jobs, often coming home exhausted and defeated, yet always wearing a smile for their son. From a young age, Ethan understood the weight of financial instability. He watched his parents juggle bills, sometimes choosing between paying for groceries or the electricity. Their sacrifices were many, their luxuries few. There were nights when the dinner table conversation revolved around how to stretch a dollar just a bit further, and Ethan learned early on the importance of frugality and resilience. Despite their financial woes, Ethan's parents never compromised on the value of education. They believed in their son's potential, nurturing his curiosity and encouraging his academic pursuits. Books were borrowed, secondhand, and well-loved, filling their home with the scent of old pages and new dreams. Ethan devoured every bit of knowledge he could, finding solace in the world of science and technology. But the pressure weighed heavily on Ethan. He felt a deep sense of responsibility to lift his family out of poverty, to repay the sacrifices his parents made for him. Each scholarship he earned and each accolade he received was a step closer to that goal. Yet, as the years went by, the burden of expectation grew, gnawing at his conscience. The turning point came during his final year of high school when an unexpected medical bill threw his family into deeper debt. Desperation led Ethan to explore ways to use his talents for quick financial gain. It was then that he stumbled upon the shadowy world of cybercrime. What started as a one-time act to help his family spiraled into something far more complicated. Ethan's past was a tapestry of love, struggle, and the relentless pursuit of a better life. His family's hardships shaped him, driving his ambition and setting him on a path that was both promising and perilous. Ethan's venture into the cyber world began almost accidentally. It was a rainy evening, and he was holed up in his room, the steady drum of raindrops on his window creating a rhythm that matched his thoughts. He had always been a tech enthusiast, a whiz kid who could dismantle and reassemble gadgets before he was even a teenager. But that night, his curiosity took him down a darker path. With his family's financial strain weighing heavily on him, Ethan found himself exploring forums and chat rooms where like-minded tech aficionados gathered. It was in these shadowy corners of the internet that he first encountered discussions about hacking. What started as an innocent quest for knowledge quickly morphed into something more profound and dangerous. Ethan was captivated by the power and potential that hacking offered. It wasn't just about breaking into systems. It was about understanding them, bending them to his will. He immersed himself in learning everything he could about cybersecurity, encryption, and coding. His nights were spent poring over complex algorithms and decoding encryption methods, his mind constantly buzzing with new possibilities. The more he learned, the more he realized the potential to use his skills for financial gain. It was a moral gray area, but desperation often blurs the lines of right and wrong. Ethan rationalized his actions by focusing on his family's dire need for financial stability. His first venture was small, just a simple breach of an unsecured network. But the thrill of success and the immediate financial reward hooked him. Ethan's operations grew bolder and more sophisticated. He began developing and selling cybersecurity software on the black market, tools designed to protect companies with questionable ethics. Each transaction brought in much-needed money, easing the financial burden on his parents. But with each step deeper into this world, Ethan felt a growing sense of unease. He was living a double life, brilliant student by day, elusive hacker by night. The dichotomy was stark, yet he managed to keep the two worlds separate. His academic achievements continued to shine, masking the secret life that lurked behind his innocent facade. But the deeper he delved into cybercrime, the harder it became to maintain that separation. Ethan's discovery of the cyber world was a turning point, setting him on a path fraught with danger and ethical dilemmas. It was a journey that would test his limits, challenge his morals, and ultimately force him to confront the person he was becoming. Ethan's nights as a hacker were driven by a singular motivation: his family's well-being. As each day passed, the weight of responsibility bore down on him with increasing intensity. His parents, oblivious to the true source of their sudden financial relief, believed their hard work was finally paying off. Ethan let them believe it. He couldn't bear to shatter their fragile sense of hope. Every dollar Ethan earned from his illicit activities went towards paying off debts, covering medical bills, and ensuring there was always food on the table. The relief on his mother's face when she could finally afford her medication was worth every risk he took. The pride in his father's eyes when they managed to keep the lights on for another month fueled Ethan's determination to keep going, no matter the cost. But the burden was immense. Balancing his demanding academic schedule with his clandestine operations left him exhausted, both physically and mentally. Ethan found himself constantly looking over his shoulder, paranoid about being caught. He became adept at covering his tracks, but the stress of living a double life was taking its toll. His grades, remarkably, never suffered. In fact, Ethan's performance in school seemed to improve as the stakes grew higher. His drive to succeed academically was fueled by the same desperation that led him to hacking. Failure was not an option. Too many people depended on him. His professors saw him as a model student, but none of them knew the turmoil that raged beneath his composed exterior. Ethan's friends noticed changes, though. He became more withdrawn, often declining invitations to social events. When questioned, he would blame his busy schedule or feign illness. The truth was far more complicated. He couldn't afford distractions. Each minute spent on frivolity was a minute lost to protecting his family from financial ruin. The strain of his secret life began to show in subtle ways. He lost weight, his eyes were perpetually tired, and his hands would sometimes shake from the sheer pressure of it all. Yet, whenever he looked at his parents, all those sacrifices seemed worth it. Their comfort and happiness were his primary concern, and he would go to any lengths to ensure it. Ethan's world was a delicate balance of light and shadow. By day, he basked in the light of academic success and admiration. By night, he navigated the shadowy underworld of cybercrime. The duality of his existence was exhausting, but he pressed on, driven by an unyielding sense of duty to his family. In those quiet moments, when he allowed himself to reflect, Ethan wondered how long he could keep this up. How long before his two worlds collided? The weight of responsibility was heavy, but the fear of failure was even heavier. And so he continued, one step at a time, walking the fine line between right and wrong, hoping that someday he could find a way out. By day, Ethan Kim was the picture of academic excellence. He navigated the university halls with a confident stride, always ready with a quick smile or a thoughtful answer. His professors admired his dedication, and his peers respected his intellect. He was the student who always seemed to have it all together, balancing a heavy course load with his leadership roles in various academic clubs. But as the sun dipped below the horizon, Ethan's world transformed. The careful facade he maintained during the day melted away, replaced by the steely focus of a hacker operating in the shadows. His dorm room, a cluttered space filled with textbooks and gadgets, became his command center. The glow of multiple screens illuminated his face as he dove into the world of cybercrime. Ethan's hacking skills were nothing short of extraordinary. He had a knack for finding vulnerabilities in systems that even seasoned professionals missed. It started with small breaches, testing the waters and honing his craft. But as his confidence grew, so did the scale of his operations. He created sophisticated cybersecurity software, marketing it to shady businesses on the dark web. The money flowed in, easing his family's financial burdens but deepening his own moral quandaries. Living a double life was a constant juggling act. Ethan had to be meticulous, ensuring that his nighttime activities left no trace that could lead back to him. He encrypted his communications, used multiple layers of anonymizers, and constantly changed his digital footprint. The stakes were high, and a single mistake could unravel everything. The adrenaline rush from hacking was intoxicating, but it came at a cost. Ethan's sleep was fragmented, filled with nightmares of being caught. His body operated on caffeine and sheer willpower. Each morning, he would splash cold water on his face, erase the fatigue from his eyes, and step back into the role of the perfect student. His friends noticed subtle changes. Ethan's laughter became rarer. His once vibrant social life dwindled to almost nothing. He was always on edge, his mind racing with 1,000 thoughts even in moments of supposed calm. But he couldn't let anyone get too close, couldn't risk them discovering his secret. The duality of his existence began to erode his sense of self. Ethan felt like he was living two different lives, each demanding more from him than he could give. By day, he was the model student, a beacon of promise and potential. By night, he was a ghost in the machine, navigating a labyrinth of deception and danger. Yet, despite the toll it took, Ethan pressed on. The stakes were too high to falter. His family's well-being depended on his success, and he was determined to provide for them, no matter the cost to himself. Each day was a battle, a careful dance between two worlds that seemed destined to collide. Ethan's double life was a testament to his resilience and ingenuity. But beneath the surface, the pressure was building, threatening to crack the carefully constructed facade. And as the demands of his dual existence grew, Ethan knew that maintaining this delicate balance would only become more challenging with time. Ethan's breakthrough came on a night like any other, the air thick with the quiet hum of his computer systems. After months of painstaking work, he had finally developed a piece of software that was both sophisticated and powerful. It was a cybersecurity program designed to be virtually impenetrable, offering protection that legitimate companies would envy. But instead of selling it to those in need of security for ethical reasons, Ethan knew his most lucrative market lay in the shadows. He uploaded his software to a secure black market forum, the kind frequented by entities that operated on the fringes of legality. The listing was simple but enticing, promising unparalleled protection for businesses that preferred to stay out of the spotlight. Within hours, interest started pouring in. Anonymous users from various corners of the dark web inquired about the program, some skeptical, others eager. Then came the first serious offer. An entity with the handle Nightshade reached out, offering a sum that made Ethan's heart race. It was more money than he had ever seen in his life, enough to pay off a significant portion of his family's debt in one transaction. But it came with a catch. Nightshade wanted a demonstration of the software's capabilities before finalizing the deal. Ethan agreed, knowing this was his chance to prove his worth. He set up a secure virtual environment and showcased the software's features, its ability to detect and neutralize threats in real time, its intricate encryption protocols, and its user-friendly interface. Nightshade was impressed. The negotiations were swift, and the deal was struck. The moment the funds transferred into an untraceable account, Ethan felt a rush of exhilaration mixed with a pang of guilt. He had just made his first big sale in the underworld of cybercrime, and the reality of his actions hit him hard. But the relief that came with the financial windfall was undeniable. For the first time in a long while, he felt a glimmer of hope for his family's future. With the money, Ethan paid off several pressing bills and secured his parents' immediate needs. He even managed to set aside a portion for emergencies, a luxury they had never been able to afford. His parents, unaware of the source of the funds, believed it was the result of a scholarship or a grant, and Ethan let them think so. The joy and relief in their eyes made all the risks and sleepless nights seem worth it. Yet, this success also marked a turning point. The taste of easy money was tempting, and the sense of power that came with his cyber abilities was addictive. Ethan knew he was walking a dangerous line, but the needs of his family outweighed his moral reservations. He promised himself that he would only do it until they were financially stable, just a little longer. But as with all things in life, the line between necessity and desire began to blur. The more he delved into this world, the harder it became to envision a way out. Ethan's first big sale was just the beginning, a step deeper into a labyrinth from which he feared he might never escape. Mia Johnson was the kind of person who could light up a room with her presence. A fellow engineering student, she was as brilliant as she was curious, always eager to explore new ideas and challenge the status quo. With her quick wit and infectious energy, Mia quickly became one of the most well-liked students on campus. She was known for her tenacity and her knack for solving the most complex problems, often leaving even the professors in awe. Ethan first noticed Mia in their advanced robotics class. She had a way of making the difficult look effortless, her fingers flying over the keyboard as she programmed intricate algorithms. They often found themselves paired for projects, and Ethan couldn't help but admire her sharp mind and relentless drive. Despite his own brilliance, he felt a genuine respect for Mia's abilities. One evening, as they were working late in the lab, Mia's curiosity got the better of her. She noticed something peculiar about Ethan's behavior. He was always a bit secretive, often distracted, and she had seen him working on something that wasn't related to their coursework. Mia was intrigued, and her curiosity soon turned into determination. She wanted to know what Ethan was hiding. Mia began to subtly probe, asking innocent questions and making casual observations. Ethan, preoccupied with his double life, didn't immediately notice her growing interest. But Mia was persistent. She started to connect the dots, piecing together the odd hours Ethan kept and the mysterious absences that seemed too frequent to be mere coincidence. One night, when the campus was quiet and the lab nearly empty, Mia confronted Ethan. She had caught a glimpse of a program running on his laptop, something far more sophisticated than their usual projects. "Ethan, what are you really working on?" she asked, her tone a mix of curiosity and concern. Ethan's heart raced. He had always been careful, but Mia's sharp eyes and relentless curiosity had found a chink in his armor. He tried to brush it off, to deflect her questions, but Mia wasn't easily deterred. She pressed harder, her determination unwavering. Realizing he couldn't keep his secret forever, Ethan made a choice. He decided to trust Mia, to let her in on his double life. He explained everything: his family's financial struggles, his hacking activities, and the moral quagmire he found himself in. As he spoke, he watched her expression shift from surprise to understanding, and then to a resolve he hadn't expected. Mia, instead of recoiling in horror, felt a surge of empathy. She understood the pressures of family expectations and the lengths one might go to protect loved ones. But she also saw the danger Ethan was in, the perilous path he was walking. She offered her help, not out of a sense of adventure, but out of a genuine desire to assist a friend in need. Their partnership changed the dynamics of their relationship. Mia's involvement brought a new layer of complexity to Ethan's life. She brought fresh perspectives, innovative solutions, and a level of scrutiny that made their operations more secure. But with Mia's involvement also came new risks and new challenges, as their activities drew deeper into the web of cybercrime. Ethan and Mia's bond grew stronger, forged in the crucible of shared secrets and mutual goals. Together, they navigated the treacherous waters of their double lives, each step taking them further into the unknown, testing their loyalty, their ethics, and their resilience. With Mia now in the loop, Ethan's world became even more complicated. At first, their partnership was cautious, each testing the waters of this new, precarious alliance. Mia, with her unrelenting curiosity and sharp intellect, quickly adapted to the clandestine world Ethan had been navigating alone for so long. Together, they formed a formidable team, their combined skills pushing the boundaries of what they could achieve. Mia's involvement brought a new level of sophistication to their operations. She had a knack for seeing patterns and weaknesses that Ethan sometimes overlooked. Her innovative ideas and fearless attitude complemented Ethan's meticulous approach, making their illegal activities more efficient and less detectable. The thrill of their secret work was intoxicating, and for a time it seemed like they were unstoppable. However, the deeper they delved into the world of cybercrime, the higher the stakes became. What started as a way to make quick money to alleviate Ethan's family's financial struggles was evolving into something far more complex and dangerous. They began taking on bigger jobs, hacking into more secure systems, and dealing with increasingly unscrupulous clients. One such client, a shadowy figure known only as Raven, presented them with a lucrative but perilous job, hacking into a multinational corporation's database to extract sensitive information. The payoff was substantial, enough to potentially solve Ethan's financial worries once and for all. But the risk was immense. If caught, the repercussions would be severe. Ethan and Mia debated the merits of taking on Raven's job. Ethan was hesitant, aware of the dangers and the moral lines they were crossing. Mia, however, was more pragmatic, arguing that the reward was worth the risk. She reminded Ethan of why they started this in the first place: to secure a better future for his family. Their decision to accept Raven's job marked a turning point. They spent sleepless nights planning the hack, covering every possible angle to avoid detection. The tension between them grew, fueled by the high stakes and the pressure to succeed. Arguments became more frequent, their differing philosophies clashing in the heat of the moment. On the night of the hack, the air was thick with anticipation. Ethan and Mia worked in tandem, their fingers flying over their keyboards as they bypassed security protocols and firewalls. The hours ticked by with agonizing slowness, each minute fraught with danger. Finally, they breached the corporation's defenses and accessed the coveted data. But their success was short-lived. As they began extracting the information, an alarm triggered. The corporation's security team had detected the breach and was closing in on them. Ethan and Mia had to think fast, erasing their tracks and severing connections to avoid being traced. It was a narrow escape, but they managed to slip through the net, the stolen data in their possession. The aftermath of the hack left them both exhilarated and shaken. They had pulled off their most ambitious job yet, but the close call was a stark reminder of the dangers they faced. The money from Raven's job provided a temporary relief, but it also attracted unwanted attention, making them targets in the murky world of cybercrime. Ethan and Mia's alliance, forged in secrecy and necessity, was now a complex web of trust, tension, and shared risk. Their success had come at a cost, pushing them further down a path from which there seemed to be no return. As they navigated this dangerous new reality, they were forced to confront not only the external threats but also the internal conflicts that threatened to tear them apart. As Ethan and Mia delved deeper into their cyber activities, the strain of their double lives began to show. The exhilaration of their successes was overshadowed by the constant fear of exposure. They grew more paranoid, each day a careful dance of maintaining their normal lives while protecting their clandestine operations. Their partnership, once a harmonious balance of skills and intellect, started to fray at the edges. Ethan's meticulous nature clashed with Mia's boldness. He insisted on caution and thoroughness, while Mia, emboldened by their previous successes, pushed for more ambitious and riskier projects. The tension between them grew, often erupting into heated arguments that left both feeling frustrated and isolated. One evening, as they were planning their next move, the pressure boiled over. Mia suggested hacking into a high-profile target, a corporation known for its shady dealings. The potential payout was enormous, but so was the risk. Ethan, wary of drawing too much attention, argued against it. "We're getting too reckless, Mia. One mistake and it's all over," he warned, his voice tinged with anxiety. Mia's eyes flashed with determination. "We've come this far, Ethan. Playing it safe won't get us anywhere. We need to think bigger, take bolder steps," she countered. her tone defiant. The argument escalated, their voices echoing in the small room. The trust that had once been their greatest strength now seemed fragile. Ethan felt the weight of responsibility heavier than ever. His family depended on him, and the stakes were too high to let ambition cloud their judgment. But Mia's drive and relentless pursuit of success were equally compelling, forcing Ethan to confront his own fears and doubts. Their disagreements began to affect their work. Small mistakes crept into their operations, and their once seamless teamwork became strained. Ethan noticed Mia growing more secretive, often working on her own projects without his knowledge. This secrecy bred suspicion, further widening the rift between them. One night, as Ethan reviewed their latest hack, he discovered a discrepancy. A significant amount of money had been diverted to an unknown account. Confronting Mia, he demanded an explanation. "What's going on, Mia? Where's the money?" Mia's face hardened, her eyes meeting his with a steely resolve. "I needed it for something important. Trust me, Ethan. I'm doing what's best for both of us." Ethan's heart sank. The trust they had built was unraveling, replaced by a web of secrets and lies. He couldn't shake the feeling that Mia was slipping away, driven by ambitions that threatened to destroy everything they had worked for. The partnership that had once been their greatest asset was now a source of constant tension and uncertainty. Despite the growing divide, they knew they needed each other. The dangers of their world were too great to face alone. But as secrets continued to mount and trust eroded, the future of their alliance hung in the balance. The pressure was building, and it was only a matter of time before it reached a breaking point. Ethan and Mia were caught in a dangerous game, each move bringing them closer to the edge. The tension between them was palpable, a silent battle of wills that tested their limits and their loyalty. And as they navigated this treacherous path, they couldn't help but wonder how much longer they could keep their secrets from consuming them. As Ethan and Mia continued their cyber exploits, the risk of exposure loomed ever larger. The close calls and near misses had become more frequent, each one leaving them more paranoid and on edge. It was a constant game of cat and mouse, with the authorities growing increasingly sophisticated in their efforts to track down the hackers responsible for a string of high-profile breaches. Ethan's meticulous nature became their saving grace. He insisted on leaving no digital trace, meticulously covering their tracks and employing layers of encryption and anonymizers. But the stress of maintaining this level of secrecy was immense. Every email, every transaction, every piece of code had to be scrutinized for potential vulnerabilities. The margin for error was non-existent. One particularly tense night, they received a message from a reliable source within the cyber underground. The message was brief and alarming. "Authorities are closing in. They have new technology. Be careful." The warning sent a chill down Ethan's spine. The stakes were higher than ever, and one slip-up could mean the end of everything. Ethan and Mia intensified their security measures. They moved their operations to a different location, a nondescript apartment far from campus. They communicated only through encrypted channels and used burner phones that were discarded after each use. Despite their precautions, the fear of being discovered gnawed at them constantly. Their anxiety reached a peak when a news report revealed that a notorious hacker had been apprehended, and authorities were closing in on others involved. The report detailed the sophisticated methods being used to trace cybercriminals, and it became clear that Ethan and Mia were not as invisible as they had hoped. Ethan's paranoia grew. He began double-checking everything, losing sleep over the slightest possibility of detection. His grades started to slip, and his professors noted the change in his demeanor. Friends who once admired his brilliance now saw a distracted and exhausted young man, haunted by an invisible specter. Mia, on the other hand, tried to keep up appearances. She continued to excel academically, using her charm and wit to deflect any suspicions. But the constant pressure took its toll on her as well. She became more irritable, her once bright eyes now shadowed with worry. The tension between them escalated further when Ethan discovered that Mia had taken on another risky job without consulting him. "What were you thinking, Mia? We're already on thin ice," he exploded, his voice filled with a mix of anger and fear. "We need the money, Ethan. We can't afford to be complacent." Mia shot back, her frustration boiling over. The argument left them both feeling more isolated and uncertain than ever before. Despite the growing rift, they knew they had to stick together. The risk of exposure was too great for either of them to face alone. They doubled down on their efforts to remain undetected, but the strain was palpable. Each day felt like a countdown to an inevitable disaster. The looming threat of exposure hung over them like a dark cloud, casting a shadow over every aspect of their lives. The fear was omnipresent, a constant reminder of the high stakes they were playing for. Ethan and Mia were walking a razor's edge, their every move scrutinized by unseen eyes. And as the walls closed in, they couldn't help but wonder how much longer they could evade capture before their luck ran out. As the pressure of their secret lives mounted, Ethan found himself grappling with profound internal conflicts. The thrill of hacking, once a necessary means to an end, now felt like a chain dragging him deeper into a moral abyss. Each night, as he sat before his computer, the glow of the screen casting shadows on his weary face, he questioned the path he had chosen. Ethan's thoughts often drifted to his family, the very reason he had ventured into this dark world. He remembered his mother's tired smile, the way his father's shoulders seemed to carry the weight of the world. The money he earned from hacking had brought them relief, but at what cost? The deception and the danger weighed heavily on his conscience. He was caught in a web of his own making, each lie an illegal act pulling him further away from the person he wanted to be. The conflict wasn't just within Ethan. It was between him and Mia as well. Mia's pragmatism and ambition contrasted sharply with Ethan's growing ethical concerns. She saw their activities as a means to an end, a way to secure their futures and solve immediate problems. Ethan, however, couldn't shake the feeling that they were losing themselves to the darkness they had embraced. One night, after a particularly tense argument about their next move, Ethan found himself alone, staring out the window of their hideout. The city lights blurred through his exhausted eyes, and he felt a profound sense of isolation. The walls seemed to close in, the silence pressing down on him. In that moment, he wondered if the money and the fleeting security were worth the constant fear and the erosion of his soul. Ethan began to experience vivid dreams that left him shaken. In these dreams, he was a child again, innocent and unburdened by the weight of his current life. He would wake up in a cold sweat, the dream's clarity fading but the feelings of guilt and regret lingering. These dreams were a stark reminder of the person he used to be, the person he feared he could never return to. His academic performance, once a source of pride and joy, started to feel hollow. The accolades and achievements seemed meaningless in the face of his secret life. Ethan's interactions with his professors and peers became strained, his mind always preoccupied with the next hack, the next danger. The ethical lines he had once vowed never to cross were now blurred and indistinct. Ethan's internal turmoil reached a peak when he received an email from a professor who had always believed in him. The email praised his recent work but also expressed concern over the noticeable change in his demeanor and performance. "Ethan, you have so much potential. Don't lose sight of who you are," the professor wrote. The words hit Ethan hard, piercing through the fog of his conflicted thoughts. That night, Ethan confronted Mia. "We're losing ourselves, Mia. This isn't who we are," he said, his voice filled with a desperate plea for understanding. Mia looked at him, her eyes hardening. "We're doing what we have to, Ethan. There's no going back now." Ethan's internal conflict raged on, a battle between his sense of duty to his family and his desire to reclaim his integrity. The path they were on seemed inexorable, each step pulling them further from the light. And as the days passed, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that a reckoning was coming, a moment when he would have to choose between the person he had become and the person he wanted to be. In the quiet moments, when the world seemed to pause, Ethan prayed for a way out, for a chance to make things right. But the answers were elusive, and the shadows of his choices loomed large. The internal conflicts tore at his soul, leaving him to wonder if redemption was even possible for someone who had strayed so far into the darkness. As the days turned into weeks, the fragile alliance between Ethan and Mia was tested in ways neither of them had anticipated. Their shared secrets and the constant threat of exposure created an atmosphere thick with tension and suspicion. Yet, despite the growing rift, their loyalty to each other remained a critical thread that held their partnership together. Ethan, increasingly haunted by his moral conflicts, found himself questioning every decision, every move they made. Mia, on the other hand, seemed to embrace the risks, her resolve hardening with each passing day. The money they earned was essential, but the cost of their loyalty to each other was beginning to take a toll on their humanity. One evening, as they sat in their hideout, a new message pinged on Ethan's encrypted phone. It was from Raven, their shadowy client, demanding another high-risk job. The reward was substantial, but the task was fraught with peril, hacking into a government contractor's database to obtain sensitive information. Ethan's stomach churned at the thought. This was more dangerous than anything they had attempted before. Mia's eyes gleamed with determination. "We can do this, Ethan. We've handled tough jobs before. This could set us up for life," she said, her voice steady and convincing. But Ethan felt a growing sense of dread. "This is too risky, Mia. We're playing with fire. One mistake and we're done." Their argument was intense, voices rising and echoing in the small space. Mia accused Ethan of losing his nerve, while Ethan accused Mia of being blinded by greed. The trust between them, already strained, seemed to fray even further. Yet, in the end, Ethan's loyalty to Mia and his desperate need to secure his family's future pushed him to agree to the job, despite his better judgment. As they prepared for the hack, the atmosphere was charged with tension. They meticulously planned every detail, aware that any slip could lead to their downfall. The night of the hack, they sat side by side, their faces illuminated by the glow of their screens. The silence was punctuated only by the rapid tapping of keys and the occasional whispered instruction. The hack was a success at first. They breached the contractor's defenses, accessed the data, and began extracting it. But just as they were about to finish, an alarm sounded. The system had detected their intrusion. Panic set in as they scrambled to cover their tracks and escape unnoticed. Heart-pounding, Ethan executed a series of commands to wipe their digital footprints, while Mia encrypted the stolen data and prepared it for transfer. They managed to evade detection, but the close call left them both shaken. The weight of their actions pressed heavily on Ethan, his mind racing with the potential consequences of their reckless pursuit. Mia, though visibly rattled, tried to reassure him. "We did it, Ethan. We're safe," she said, but the confidence in her voice wavered. In the days that followed, the fallout from their latest hack began to manifest. News reports of the breach surfaced, and the government contractor launched an intense investigation to track down the perpetrators. Ethan and Mia were on edge, their every move calculated to avoid drawing attention. The pressure was immense, the fear of being caught a constant companion. Their loyalty to each other was tested to its limits. Ethan's guilt and moral conflict clashed with Mia's determination and pragmatism. They argued more frequently, their once strong bond showing signs of breaking. Yet, despite the strain, they clung to each other, aware that their survival depended on their unity. Ethan's internal struggle grew fiercer. He questioned whether their loyalty to each other and the pursuit of financial security was worth the price they were paying. The thrill of the hack was overshadowed by the toll it took on his soul, and as they navigated the treacherous aftermath of their latest exploit, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that their loyalty was leading them down a path from which there might be no return. The price of their loyalty was steep, demanding sacrifices that weighed heavily on their consciences. And as the shadows of their choices loomed ever larger, Ethan and Mia were forced to confront the true cost of their alliance, wondering if their bond could withstand the trials yet to come. The sense of imminent danger became a constant in Ethan and Mia's lives. After their high-risk hack into the government contractor's database, the tension between them was palpable. They knew they had stirred a hornet's nest, and the repercussions were bound to follow. The fear of being discovered haunted their every step, a shadow that loomed over their every move. One afternoon, Ethan received a call from an unknown number. His heart pounded as he answered, half expecting it to be the authorities. Instead, it was a distorted voice, digitally altered. You've attracted too much attention. Lay low or you'll be next." The voice warned before the line went dead. The cryptic message sent chills down Ethan's spine. Someone was watching them, someone who knew too much. Ethan and Mia's paranoia skyrocketed. They doubled down on their security measures, even considering the possibility of leaving the city altogether. Every stranger seemed like a potential threat, every glance a sign of suspicion. Their hideout became their sanctuary, a place where they could plan and regroup. But even there, the tension was inescapable. Their stress levels were at an all-time high. Ethan's grades slipped further, his once sharp focus dulled by the constant fear. Mia, too, struggled to maintain her composure, the pressure manifesting in sleepless nights and frayed nerves. They clung to each other for support, but the strain was evident in their interactions. One night, as they were discussing their next move, a loud knock on the door startled them. They froze, exchanging panicked glances. "Who could that be?" Mia whispered, her voice trembling. Ethan motioned for her to stay quiet as he approached the door cautiously. Peering through the peephole, he saw a familiar face, Detective Harris, a campus security officer known for his diligence. Ethan's mind raced. What was Harris doing there? Had they been found out? He opened the door a crack, trying to appear calm. "Detective, what brings you here?" he asked, his voice steady despite the pounding in his chest. Harris looked serious, his eyes scanning the room behind Ethan. "We've received reports of suspicious activity in the area. Just doing a routine check." "Everything okay here?" he asked, his tone implying more than his words. Ethan nodded, forcing a smile. "Yes, everything's fine. Just studying late, you know how it is," he replied. Harris held his gaze for a moment longer before nodding and leaving. Ethan closed the door, his hands shaking. They had narrowly avoided detection, but the encounter left them both rattled. As the days went by, the sense of danger only grew. They noticed unmarked cars parked near their hideout, unfamiliar faces lingering in places they frequented. The message from the distorted voice played on a loop in Ethan's mind. They were being watched, hunted. The walls felt like they were closing in, the noose tightening around their necks. Ethan and Mia knew they had to act fast. They couldn't stay in one place for too long. The risk of exposure was too great. They began making plans to disappear, to create new identities and start over somewhere far away. But the logistics were complicated, and the constant fear made it difficult to think clearly. Their situation was further complicated when they discovered that Raven, their elusive client, was linked to a powerful criminal organization. The realization hit hard. They were entangled in something much bigger and more dangerous than they had anticipated. Their every move was being monitored, and any misstep could lead to dire consequences. Ethan's internal conflict intensified. He felt trapped, his moral compass spinning wildly as he struggled to find a way out. The imminent danger was a constant reminder of the precariousness of their situation. And as they navigated this treacherous path, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that their time was running out. Imminent danger was no longer just a possibility. It was a reality they lived with every day. The tension and fear had become their constant companions, shaping their actions and decisions. And as they faced the unknown, Ethan and Mia braced themselves for whatever came next, hoping that their loyalty and resilience would see them through the storm. The weight of their secret lives had taken its toll on Ethan and Mia, and the cracks in their partnership were becoming more pronounced. The constant fear and pressure had eroded the trust that once bound them, replacing it with suspicion and doubt. They had always been each other's confidants, but now, a sense of betrayal lingered in the air, threatening to destroy what little remained of their alliance. One evening, as they sat in their hideout, Ethan noticed something peculiar. Mia had been spending more time on her own, her activities shrouded in secrecy. She would often disappear for hours, leaving Ethan in the dark about her whereabouts. His paranoia, already heightened by their recent close calls, began to spiral out of control. Ethan decided to confront Mia. "Where have you been going, Mia? What aren't you telling me?" he demanded, his voice a mix of frustration and desperation. Mia's eyes flashed with irritation. I don't have to report every move I make to you, Ethan. I'm handling things, she replied, her tone defensive. The argument that followed was fierce, each accusing the other of secrecy and deceit. Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that Mia was hiding something, and Mia resented Ethan's constant questioning and lack of trust. The bond that had once been their greatest strength now felt like a fragile thread, on the verge of snapping. In a moment of heated anger, Ethan did something he never thought he would do. He accessed Mia's personal files. His heart pounded as he searched for any clue that might explain her recent behavior. What he found left him stunned. There were messages from Raven, discussing deals and transactions that Ethan knew nothing about. Mia had been making side deals, taking on jobs without his knowledge. Ethan's mind raced. Why would Mia go behind his back? Was she planning to leave him out in the cold? Or worse, was she setting him up? The sense of betrayal was overwhelming. He confronted Mia with the evidence, his voice shaking with anger. You've been working with Raven without me. What else are you hiding? Mia's face hardened. I did what I had to do, Ethan. We needed the money, and you've been too scared to take risks. I couldn't wait for you to make up your mind, she snapped. Her words cut deep, and Ethan felt a surge of emotions. Anger, hurt, and a deep sense of betrayal. The argument escalated, both of them hurling accusations and venting their frustrations. The trust they had once shared was shattered, replaced by a chasm of distrust and resentment. Mia's pragmatism and Ethan's caution had always been a source of balance, but now they were like oil and water, unable to mix. Ethan felt the walls closing in. The imminent danger from external threats was now compounded by the internal conflict tearing them apart. He couldn't shake the feeling that Mia was slipping away, her ambitions and willingness to take risks pushing her further into the darkness. As the days passed, the tension between them remained. They still worked together out of necessity, but the bond they once had was gone. Their conversations were curt, their interactions filled with a cold formality. Ethan couldn't bring himself to fully trust Mia again, and Mia resented Ethan's constant suspicion. The sense of betrayal lingered, poisoning their partnership. Every move, every decision was fraught with tension and mistrust. They were partners in name only, each guarding their own secrets and harboring their own doubts. The alliance that had once been their greatest asset was now a fragile facade, barely holding together under the weight of their shared guilt and fear. Ethan and Mia were caught in a web of betrayal and distrust, their partnership teetering on the brink of collapse. The external dangers they faced were daunting, but it was the internal conflict that threatened to destroy them from within. And as they navigated the treacherous path ahead, they couldn't help but wonder if their bond could ever be repaired, or if the betrayal had driven them apart for good. Ethan stood at a crossroads, his mind a storm of conflicting thoughts and emotions. The betrayal and distrust between him and Mia had driven a wedge so deep that their partnership seemed irreparable. Yet, the looming threats and the constant fear of exposure left him with no choice but to continue working with her. It was a fragile alliance, held together by necessity rather than trust. One evening, as Ethan sat alone in their hideout, the weight of his decisions pressed heavily on him. He knew he couldn't continue like this. The life of deceit and danger was consuming him, eroding his morals and sanity. He yearned for a way out, a chance to start over and reclaim the person he once was. As he contemplated his next move, Mia walked in, her face set with determination. "We need to talk," she said, her voice void of the usual warmth. Ethan nodded, knowing this conversation was inevitable. Mia laid out a plan, her eyes gleaming with the familiar fire of ambition. "There's one last job, Ethan. A big one. Enough to set us up for life. We can disappear, start over, leave all this behind," she said, her voice filled with a desperate hope. The job involved hacking into a major financial institution, a target that promised a massive payout but came with unprecedented risks. Ethan's mind raced. The idea of one final heist was tempting, a chance to secure his family's future and finally escape the shadow of his illegal activities. But the risks were monumental. If they failed, there would be no second chances. They would be caught and their lives would be ruined. The days that followed were a blur of preparation and planning. Ethan and Mia, despite their strained relationship, worked tirelessly to cover every possible angle. The tension between them was palpable, but the shared goal kept them focused. Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that this was their last chance, a final roll of the dice. On the night of the heist, the air was thick with anticipation. Ethan and Mia sat side by side, their fingers poised over their keyboards. The room was silent, save for the soft hum of their computers. Every second felt like an eternity as they breached the financial institution's defenses. The system was more secure than anything they had encountered before, but their combined skills and meticulous planning gave them an edge. As they navigated the labyrinth of security protocols, Ethan's heart pounded in his chest. The adrenaline was intoxicating, but so was the fear. They were walking a tightrope, one misstep away from disaster. After what felt like hours, they finally accessed the main database. The payout was within reach. But then disaster struck. An alarm sounded, louder and more urgent than anything they had encountered before. The institution's security team had detected the breach and was closing in fast. Ethan and Mia's eyes met, a silent understanding passing between them. They had to act quickly, or everything would be lost. In a frantic rush, they began extracting the funds, transferring them to a series of untraceable accounts. The seconds ticked by with agonizing slowness. Just as they completed the transfer, the security team breached their defenses. Ethan executed the final command to wipe their tracks, praying it would be enough. They disconnected and sat in stunned silence, the reality of what they had just done sinking in. The money was theirs, but so was the risk of being caught. Ethan's mind was a whirlwind of emotions. Relief, fear, and a sense of finality washed over him. Ethan and Mia quickly packed their things, preparing to disappear. As they left their hideout for the last time, Ethan couldn't help but feel a mix of hope and dread. They had made their final decision, and there was no turning back. The future was uncertain, but it was theirs to shape. The final decision had been made, and with it came the promise of freedom and the threat of retribution. Ethan and Mia's path was fraught with danger, but for the first time in a long while, there was a glimmer of hope. They had one last chance to reclaim their lives, and they were determined to take it no matter the cost. The immediate aftermath of the heist was a whirlwind of activity and raw nerves. Ethan and Mia barely had time to process their success before they had to put their escape plan into motion. Every second counted, and they couldn't afford to linger. The tension was palpable as they hurriedly gathered their essentials, their minds racing with the enormity of what they had just accomplished, and the peril that still loomed. As they left their hideout, the streets felt both familiar and alien. The same city, but now seen through the lens of fugitives. They moved swiftly, blending into the crowd, every glance over their shoulders filled with paranoia. They had arranged for new identities and safe houses, but the transition was fraught with risks. Any misstep could lead to their capture. Ethan's heart pounded as they boarded a train to a neighboring city, their first step in a long journey to freedom. The sense of relief was mixed with an overwhelming anxiety. He couldn't shake the feeling that eyes were on them, that any moment someone might recognize them or alert the authorities. Mia, beside him, maintained a facade of calm, but he could see the tension in her clenched jaw and the way she gripped her bag. The train ride felt interminable, each stop and delay a test of their nerves. Ethan's thoughts were a chaotic mix of relief and fear. The money they had stolen was their ticket to a new life, but it also marked them as targets. He replayed the heist in his mind, analyzing every detail, searching for any mistakes that might have left a trail. When they finally arrived at their destination, the city's anonymity was a cold comfort. They checked into a small, nondescript motel using their new identities. Ethan double-checked their room for any signs of surveillance, his paranoia in overdrive. The room was sparse, a stark contrast to the chaos of their recent lives, but it provided a temporary sanctuary. As night fell, the weight of their actions began to settle on them. The adrenaline rush was fading, replaced by a heavy sense of reality. They had pulled off the heist, but the immediate consequences were beginning to manifest. The news was filled with reports of the breach, authorities promising swift justice and severe repercussions for those responsible. Ethan and Mia knew they had to lay low, but the constant fear of being discovered made it difficult to relax. Every knock on the door, every unexpected noise, sent their hearts racing. The isolation and uncertainty were suffocating, each day blending into the next as they waited for the storm to pass. Their relationship, already strained, was tested further by the pressures of their new reality. Arguments flared over the smallest things: what to eat, where to go, who to trust. The weight of their shared secrets and the constant danger threatened to tear them apart. Yet, amidst the tension, there were moments of raw vulnerability where the gravity of their situation brought them closer together. Ethan struggled with his conscience, the moral conflicts that had plagued him resurfacing with a vengeance. The money was supposed to bring freedom, but it felt like a chain, binding him to a life of deceit and fear. He questioned whether they could ever truly escape the shadows of their past. Mia, ever pragmatic, focused on the future, making plans and contingencies. She tried to reassure Ethan, reminding him of why they had done this, of the better life they could now afford. But even she couldn't deny the toll it was taking on them both. The immediate consequences of their heist were a harsh reality check. They had gained the means to escape their old lives, but at a cost that weighed heavily on their minds and souls. As they navigated the treacherous path ahead, Ethan and Mia were forced to confront the true extent of their choices and the uncertain future that lay before them. Ethan and Mia's new life, bought with the money from their daring heist, was anything but secure. The initial rush of freedom was quickly overshadowed by the constant threat of being discovered. They moved from city to city, never staying in one place long enough to establish roots. Their lives were a series of fleeting moments, punctuated by the ever-present fear of capture. Ethan felt the weight of their actions pressing down on him. The money, which had seemed like a solution to all their problems, now felt like a curse. He couldn't shake the guilt and the gnawing feeling that they were living on borrowed time. Every day was a struggle to maintain the facade, to keep their secrets hidden. The moral conflicts that had plagued him from the beginning now loomed larger than ever. One night, as they sat in yet another anonymous motel room, Ethan voiced his doubts to Mia. "We can't keep living like this, Mia. This isn't a life. It's just running, always looking over our shoulders," he said, his voice heavy with resignation. Mia looked at him, her eyes reflecting the same weariness. "What choice do we have, Ethan? We knew what we were getting into. We just have to stay ahead, stay smart," she replied, but even she seemed uncertain. As the days turned into weeks, the strain began to take a toll on them both. Ethan's health deteriorated, the constant stress eroding his physical and mental well-being. Mia, ever the pragmatist, tried to hold things together, but the cracks in their partnership were becoming more apparent. They argued more frequently, their once unbreakable bond fraying under the pressure. Ethan found himself yearning for redemption, a way to atone for his actions and find some semblance of peace. He started reaching out to people he had once known, cautiously and covertly, seeking advice and searching for a way out of the mess they had created. He read about whistleblowers and people who had turned their lives around, finding inspiration in their stories. One night, Ethan made a decision. "Mia, we need to stop running. We need to find a way to make this right," he said, his voice filled with a quiet determination. Mia looked at him, a mix of shock and fear in her eyes. "What are you saying, Ethan? That we turn ourselves in?" Ethan shook his head. "Not exactly, but we need to find a way to use what we've done for good. Maybe we can expose the corruption we've seen, help bring down the real criminals. It's risky, but it's better than living like this." Mia was silent for a long moment, her mind racing. Finally, she nodded. "Okay, Ethan, let's do it. But we have to be smart about it. One wrong move and it's all over." They began to gather evidence, compiling everything they had on the criminal organizations they had worked with. It was dangerous work, requiring them to access old contacts and navigate the treacherous world they had tried to leave behind. The tension was palpable, every step fraught with danger. Their efforts culminated in a daring plan to expose the corruption they had witnessed. They reached out to a trusted journalist, someone with a reputation for integrity and a history of exposing high-profile corruption. It was a gamble, but they had no other choice. The journalist, intrigued by their story and the evidence they provided, agreed to help. The process was painstaking, filled with moments of doubt and fear, but slowly their story began to take shape. The journalists' investigations corroborated their claims, and a series of articles began to expose the web of corruption and crime they had been entangled in. As the truth came to light, Ethan and Mia found themselves in the crosshairs of those they had betrayed. The danger was real and immediate, but so was the sense of purpose. For the first time in a long while, Ethan felt a glimmer of hope. They were no longer running just to survive. They were fighting for something greater. The fallout was swift and intense. Arrests were made, and the criminal networks they had helped expose began to crumble. Ethan and Mia's role in the takedown was kept secret to protect them, but the knowledge that they had made a difference brought a sense of redemption. In the end, Ethan and Mia found a precarious peace. They were still fugitives, but they had reclaimed a part of their souls. Their path was uncertain, and the future was filled with challenges, but they faced it together, with a renewed sense of purpose and a hope for redemption. As the dust settled from their daring bid for redemption, Ethan and Mia found themselves in a strange limbo. They had succeeded in exposing a vast network of corruption, their evidence leading to multiple high-profile arrests and shaking the foundations of the criminal underworld. But their victory came at a cost. They were still on the run, fugitives in the eyes of the law, their identities and locations shrouded in secrecy. Ethan stood on the balcony of their latest safe house, gazing out at the city below. The skyline was different from any he had seen before, each new place blending into the next in their endless journey. He took a deep breath, the cool night air filling his lungs, and let his thoughts wander. The past months had been a whirlwind of danger, deceit, and fleeting moments of triumph. Now, in the stillness of the night, he allowed himself a moment of reflection. Inside, Mia was hunched over her laptop, meticulously planning their next move. She had always been the strategist, the one with the plans and contingencies. Her resolve had kept them going when things seemed bleak. But even she couldn't deny the toll it had taken on them both. They were weary, their spirits bruised by the relentless pressure of their double lives. Ethan turned and walked back inside, the weight of their situation pressing heavily on him. "Mia," he said softly, "we can't keep living like this. We need to find a way to truly start over, to find some semblance of peace." Mia looked up, her eyes tired but determined. "I know, Ethan, but we need to be smart about it. We can't afford any mistakes now." She closed her laptop and stood, crossing the room to join him. They stood together, united by their shared experiences and the bond that had weathered so many storms. Days turned into weeks as they carefully plotted their next steps. They used the money from their heist to secure new identities, meticulously crafting backstories that would hold up under scrutiny. They chose a remote location, far from the prying eyes of the authorities and the remnants of the criminal networks they had dismantled. It was a risky move, but one they hoped would finally give them the chance to rebuild their lives. Their new home was a modest house in a quiet town, a far cry from the bustling cities they had known. It was a place where they could blend in, where the shadows of their past might not reach them. Ethan took up work as a freelance programmer, using his skills in a legitimate way for the first time in years. Mia found a job at a local library, her sharp mind and organizational skills quickly earning her the respect of her colleagues. For the first time in what felt like forever, they experienced a sense of normalcy. The constant fear of discovery began to fade, replaced by the simple routines of everyday life. They made friends, attended community events, and slowly, the wounds of their past began to heal. The nights were no longer filled with nightmares of their former lives, but with dreams of a future they could build together. Ethan and Mia still carried the weight of their actions, the choices that had brought them to this point. But they had found a way to turn their darkest moments into a path towards redemption. They knew they could never fully escape the shadows of their past, but they had learned to live with them, to let them be a part of their story without defining it. As the seasons changed, Ethan and Mia stood on their porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in hues of orange and pink. They had come a long way from the frantic, dangerous lives they once led. There was still uncertainty, still the occasional flash of fear when a stranger lingered too long, but they faced it together. The fate of Ethan Kim was one of redemption, hard won, of a life rebuilt from the ashes of deceit and danger. It was a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, the power of hope, and the strength found in the unlikeliest of partnerships. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, Ethan knew that whatever the future held, they would face it together, with the courage and resolve that had brought them this far.